Hi, and welcome to another video in AI and C#, where we look into the Microsoft Agent Framework. And in this video, we're going to look at how we can work with input that are other than text. So here we are in Visual Studio, and we have seen a lot of examples so far, where we have just given some chat message with some text, or just given the text directly here. Same output. But what if we want to use other things? These LLMs, or most of them, are multimodal, where they talk about they are able to work with images and PDFs and stuff. In the example, I have put in some scenarios for text, image, and PDF, because that is more or less what they can work with. Because if you try to upload a .txt file or some kind of file that you have, they just come back and says they are not able to work with them. They are not able to process them. And of course, if it's a file or some kind of content that it doesn't understand, you can of course use normal RAG or retrieval augmented generation and put it extract data out of a file. Let's say you had some kind of technical specification in a format that is not common. You could of course take that data out and then just give it to the LLM as text. But there's this few scenarios, images and PDFs, that are supported. In one of the cases, PDF is only partly supported. But let's see how that works. And in order to run this sample, you need both Azure AI and OpenAI, because OpenAI actually have some features that they support that Azure OpenAI for some reason don't support. But let's set some breakpoints, and let's start with the normal text, which is nothing special in the scenario. And we just used Azure OpenAI here, but both Azure and OpenAI, of course, can understand text. So what is the capital of France? And a response back that just says the capital of France is Paris. So nothing special there. Images are also supported. So let's run and see that whenever we use an image, we can either use an image that are online, meaning a URL to an image. So you can simply go in and say the chat message, instead of just writing the text, you can make a list of different things you want to send in. And in our case here, we want to send in a text content and a URI content. Because if we just send it the image, it might not know what to do about it. But in this case, we want to ask what is in the image. And the image is a picture of the settlers of Catan. I can show it here so we know what's going on. Just bring it up on another screen and show that it's this image. So we're asking what is in this image. And if we do that, take a little longer, of course. And let me jump over here. So it can look at the image and tell what's in it. And we could have asked what colors are used in the image, what numbers are used, and so on. So that's just image recognition and working with them. And it doesn't require any special model other than a multimodal. And we can begin to see our input tokens are becoming bigger because it needs to get the entire image and stuff. If we have local files, I have the same image just as an image.jpg, and I put in that it's only called image.jpg, so it's not like it's looking at the URL and figuring out it's Settlers of Catan. It's actually looking at the image. And images can be processed in two ways, either as base64 with a data URI, and then we will just ask what is the content of the image. So we will see exactly the same response back, more or less, and taking the same amount of input tokens. And in the same manner, we can use the read-only memory, which is the three options we can send data to a system. So in these cases, it's data content instead of URI content. And we can see we get exactly the same message back. So nothing special there. And these work both for Azure AI and Azure OpenAI. But then we come to PDFs. And let's run again. And in this case, I have taken a PDF that is the rules of Settlers of Catan, just to keep the same theme here. And what we will see is that this is using the OpenAI agent, because if I had used the Azure OpenAI agent, it would have come back and said, hey, I don't support files. So Azure OpenAI, for some reason, can only do this with images and not PDFs. And it's not something that is anything about the agent framework. It is the pure LLM behind the scenes that are the problem here, not the framework, because that doesn't care. But if we have the rules here, because we can only work with local data and local encryptation, because if you have some URI, you of course can download it, have it in memory, and give it to the system. But we can't just point to a PDF out there in the world and say what is in this PDF. But if we get it as a base64, just like before, we can ask what is the winning conditions in attached PDF. And this takes quite a while and takes like 15,000 tokens because it's a long rule book with images and stuff. Had it been a simpler PDF with just text, it would probably go faster. So I get a response back, and it will tell that we need to reach 10 victory points, and it will even point out that on page that is specified on page 5 and page 14, and tell a little about the rules. So that is fairly cool, but we can see add a token cost, of course. And data from in memory works exactly in the same way, and again is only possible using OpenAI agent. So it is thinking for the next one, and then we are done. But we'll give the same answer back, of course. But actually making a small failure here that says it's on page 7, it's about it and not page 14. So that's AI for you. So again, other files, I have tried to put in .txt and so on, and it doesn't seem to really be able to understand that. It just says I can't process external files like that, and that is the case where you need to use your C# skills to extract data from the various files and give it as text for the system, or convert something to PDFs and give it that way. So if we look at this, you can see we can give this list of content, and you can see there's a bunch of other content here. But these are both input and output content, and we are not really gonna send at any point an error content. That is for the LLM to send back the MCP tool call results and things like that, hosted files. If it's up in Azure AI Foundry, it will give it back as a hosted file, so don't give the file back, but it gives a reference to the file that you can then download by yourself to SIG tokens. So that is actually everything there is to this. Of course, if you work with images and PDF, it's very simple, but the rest is extraction and giving as text instead. So see you in the next one.